Hi everyone.
Hi
Good morning.
everyone.
Please let us know if you can see us and hear us okay.
Yeah,
Just
oh, people
wait.
are raising their hands. That's good. Thanks, Diana. Thanks.
Great.
Oh, Lucas, Manuel, Marco. Okay. Shanice, Samati. Great. While. Okay. So I think everyone can hear us. That's good. Can you hear me, Henny?
Yes, I can hear you and see you pretty clear.
Awesome. Cool. We want to kick us off?
Yep, I think we're ready to go.
Okay. So welcome everyone to pre-arrival webinar number 2. Today we're going to be covering entry to Canada, and for anyone, I think probably everyone who's here has maybe seen these webinars before, but if not, we'll reintroduce ourselves. So my name is Claire Kelly. I'm the International Immigration Advisor at NBCC, and right now I am on the beautiful Moncton campus. Annie?
My name is Hani. I'm International Affairs Coordinator at NBCC and I work out of Fredericton at corporate office. Oh, yep.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is jump right into the presentation. Today we're going to try to keep our presentation to about 30 minutes, and then we'll leave questions and answers for another 30 minutes. So again, if you have questions along the way, you can type them into the question box, and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final half of this presentation. Okay, so without further ado, we are going to start our presentation. So,
Exciting.
uh, so what we've got the presentation broken into is kind of 3 big sections. So leaving home at the border, at the Canadian border, and landing in New Brunswick. So I think, and oh, actually, just before we skip off, can everyone see, Henny, everyone can see the entry to Canada slide, yes?
I believe so.
Do you
Guys,
see that
please
beautiful photo?
raise your hands if you can see the presentation. I can see
I
it.
Okay, good.
Yep.
If you can see it, I hope that everyone else can see it.
Yes.
I just want to mention that all of the photos that I've included in this presentation are of international students in New Brunswick. So this beautiful lake and mountainous area is up north in New Brunswick. So maybe you can explore that part. So at Mount Carlton. So leaving your current home. Uh, between now and your departure. Hanny's going to talk about this. So,
Yep. So guys, I just want to congratulate you again that you've been accepted and you're on your way to Canada. And first thing you need to do is it's obviously probably it's book your flight. And here we have at least I have few advice, and if Claire feels that you want to add something to that, please do so. So first of all, just look for the flights, and I would suggest to search for the prices and play with the dates, because different dates can you can save a little bit of money. And for example, if you're going to study at Moncton, please book your flight directly to Moncton, because in some cases we had in previous that students book their flights to Fredericton, but then again they would need to go from Fredericton to Moncton, and sometimes it hassle because would not provide airport pickups between the cities. And yeah, so my best advice would be just search for the prices, place with the dates, and please arrive before our international orientation date, which is going to be on August 29th. And yep, we're going to have a webinar in regards to housing on our next webinar. I'm going to talk a little bit in details about how to find accommodation and the strategies that you can use. And of course, it's always good to just look for a place to stay and just have a list of available houses or apartments. Maybe just send the email and introduce yourself to landlord and say that you are going to arrive to Fredericton and you would be interested to view some of the properties. We usually discourage students to book anything before they view it. So please just have a list of available. We're going to talk about this a little bit
Yeah. We'll talk
later.
about it in a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
detail next week. So,
yes.
okay, so what else?
Prepare your documents for the border.
We're gonna,
So guys, yeah, just make sure you have your documents with you. Don't put them in the luggage,
yeah.
and yep, have your credit cards with you, debit cards, and you can change your computer settings to English. We're going to have a separate webinar in regards to technical and software requirements in August. We will announce it shortly because we're going to have another webinars in August, and we'll announce schedule shortly. Prepare your medication. It's very important. So if you on prescribed medication, please make sure you have enough medication to cover you for at least, I would say, 6 months, and bring the prescription from your home country and make sure that the prescription is translated into English, so immigration officer can view the prescription and drugs. Yep.
Yep.
And pre-arrival insurance. Everyone who comes to Canada, so I'll just give you a few words as we're going to have another webinar in regards to the insurance. September 1st is the date when you're going to be covered by NBCC government insurance. But if you come before September 1st, you would need to purchase pre-arrival government insurance. And when you check the dates, so the latest dates would be August 31st. So it's the latest date when you can purchase pre-arrival insurance, because from September 1st it's going to be covered under NBCC government. Because some students, they try to buy pre-arrival insurance and they put, let's say, from August 10th to September 10th, and they couldn't purchase pre-arrival insurance. And the reason why, because the last date should be August 31st. And I will provide the link to pre-arrival insurance, and we're going to have another webinar in regards to health system in Canada and how it works, and we're going to have government representative during our webinar. Change some currency and have credit card, so have some money ready. I can tell from my experience that in most cases, if you have Visa, MasterCards, you should be fine. I did exchange some money in the airport, but I never use them. So if you have your Visa, MasterCard, you should be fine, but you can exchange the money at airport. Just please keep in mind that exchange rate might be not the best at the airport, so don't exchange all the money you have. If you need a cash, just you can exchange like $200 or something, not a large amount of money, because the exchange rate in airports are not the best. And that's do we have in August. Oh yeah, and there is a few announcements that I just want to do. Just please send us your English, because for some of the students who's been accepted conditionally, the deadline for English language test would be July 15th. So please send us your English language proficiency test, and we are going to send you the link for the registration for your program on August 13th, and please do not miss this link, because basically when you register for the program, you're telling us that you're going to come and study at NBCC, and the registration for so you need to register, and don't miss our ITLC. So ITLC is International Transition Life to College, which many of international students call it orientation. So
Mhm.
ITLC is orientation. So it would be held on August 29th, and I'm going to be at Fredericton campus for orientation for international students. I believe Claire going to be in
I'll be at
Moncton, and
Moncton. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and our staff would be covered in other locations.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think one thing that I could just add on to this is that I know that a lot of most students probably aren't leaving until August, like until after August 15th or
Yep.
so. So that's why it's most important. Well, yeah, that's why I said in August. That's when it will be registration for the college and for the orientation will be open. But we wanted to have this presentation today, like entry to Canada, because we know that some students are leaving this month, so are leaving in July. So we wanted to get ahead. We wanted this to be one of the first pre-arrival webinars we have, the topics we have, so that everyone's getting the same information. But for for students who are leaving before August 13th, you won't be able to register with NBCC. So it'll just be very important that you have everything else with you. Um, so, so yes, so we know that most people are leaving in August, so that's why it's important that you register with NBCC after August 13th. But if you're leaving before then, this is also very, very important information, but you won't be able to register with NBCC. And sorry, Hanny, what was the announcement you threw in there about English tests, which wasn't exactly
Yes.
related to this, but we'll take a
Yes.
moment to have your advertisement.
Yeah, just important dates, because July 15th is the last day when you can provide English proficiency test. For program starts in September. So everyone who's been accepted conditionally, but you would need to provide your English proficiency test, or if you did not provide your transcript or diploma, you would need to provide this
So
by
that's
July
the
15th.
so that's the last date. So
It's the last date
okay,
for
so that is a
for
very
fall.
important announcement.
Yeah, for fall
So 4 days
September.
from now, that's the last date to
Yep.
submit that for September courses.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well,
If
thank
you
you.
apply for winter intake, sorry, if you apply for winter intake, you would need to provide it by November 1st.
Oh, okay,
So, yep.
okay, but for September, it's July 15th.
Yes.
Okay. Good information. And so is this slide. I also want to mention we will be sending this slide, so you don't need to take detailed notes on every point that is here. You can take notes on what we're saying, maybe if it's not on the slide, but what we'll be sending this presentation to all of you in an email. Okay, so thank you, Henny, for all of the information on leaving home. Okay. So, and again, if you have questions about this, you can put them in the question box and we'll come back to it at the end.
Yep.
So now on to the next phase. Oh, sorry. Oh, we missed one. Hanny,
Yep.
what's that
Don't
last one?
forget to say goodbyes, guys, to your family
Yeah.
and friends, and pack your luggage, and yeah, just have maybe farewell
Yeah.
party, and yeah,
Yeah.
goodbye.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very important. Yeah. It may not be forever, but it will be, for at least a year or 8 months. So make sure you have a proper goodbye and farewell party. I think that's a good idea. Okay. So Um, so next one, moving on to, oh yeah. So once you've packed up and said your goodbyes, you'll be on your way and you'll be having
Yep.
lots of fun like all of these international students. So, um, okay. So at the border, yay, the serious part. This goes over to me, I guess.
Yep.
So
Serious parts goes to Claire always.
yeah, because okay, so I think it's important to have the serious information hopefully provided by a friendly person, but it is still very serious. So and that's what we're going to talk about. So the border officer and documents at the border when you reach the Canadian border. So after you've taken that long flight from wherever you're coming from, or multiple flights, you will arrive at the Canadian border. And when you arrive here in Canada, you will meet a border services officer. So the Canadian Border Service Agency officer um, is is the person you will meet. And if you click on that link, it will give you a full description of the importance of that job. And again, so this is the serious and important information I need to deliver to you. Is that they do have a lot of authority in that position as a border agent. Yes, you have been, if you received a letter from IRCC, it says that we want you to, you've been approved to come and study in Canada, but the the officer that you meet at the border also has the power to make that final decision to let you in or not. So let you into Canada or not. So it is very important this time at the border. So that's why this we've actually got 3 slides on, because there's a lot of information to cover. Um, we Hanny and I were deciding whether or not we should provide a photo of a border service officer, but
Yep.
we were deciding whether or not we should have a friendly border service officer or a serious border service officer, because yeah, I mean, hopefully they will be friendly, but as I said, this is a very serious, 5 to 15 minutes of your process. So we hope you take it seriously. So the officer will be asking to see, of course, your passport and travel documents, ask you a few questions, and make sure you meet the requirements to enter Canada. And so we're going to go over what those are. Oh, yes. And of course, you may have to prove in that moment that you'll leave Canada at the end of your stay. So this does all of this information, it shouldn't be too surprising. It's very similar to what was asked of you in your application to apply to be an international student. So it's very, very similar information. It's everything you've submitted before. It just might be for you to explain it yourself to an officer. Okay, so that's
Yep.
what I want you to think about and prepare for.
Yeah.
So yep,
Just if I can add, everything
yeah,
that
go for it.
you outline in your study plan or letter of explanation for your visa, if someone help you with your letter of explanation,
Right.
please read it and just to be familiar with that so you can provide the same information at the border.
Yeah, that's a very important point, Henny. So many students out there may have done this themselves, but
Yep.
many others, as you said, Henny, may have had someone that you've hired to help you, or maybe a relative has helped you prepare this information. So that's why I said at this point at the border, it will be on you to know that information and to present that information. So yeah, we want you to be ready for that. So the documents you'll need to show the officer are, of course, a valid passport or travel document, and it should say and or travel document. Hanny and I have discussed this. So this is actually information from the IRCC website, and we were deciding what a travel document is. In my studies, a travel document can sometimes replace a passport if, for example, you are a refugee or an asylum seeker. If you don't have a passport, then sometimes you're issued a travel document by IOM. But Henny also said, "Oh well, a travel document to me. What's a travel document to you, Henny?"
So, so there is a few countries where there is a so-called national ID is referred to the passport, and for travel documents you need a separate document. I think it's from country to country, but
Yeah.
basically you need a document that allows you to travel. And I
Mhm.
believe in many countries you will not be allowed to leave your country if you don't have like travel documents or passport.
Right. So so that's a very good point. Like, so you said leaving the Ukraine, you had to show your national ID before you even left Ukraine?
No, you would need to show your passport called international passport that allows you to travel.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, I know for China there is a national ID
Right.
and something else. So just make sure that the documents you have allows you to travel.
Yes. Essentially, I mean, you'll see there are a lot of things listed here. And, I've lived overseas before as well. I've mentioned this before. Like, I lived in Japan, and I remember having a kind of like a zipped folder that I had all of these documents, like more than I needed, just to make sure that I had enough like evidence and IDs of who I am. So whatever that is for you in your country, make sure that you have copies of that and official sorry, the real document and also copies, just so you're prepared. So coming back to this, so the letter of introduction that the visa office, so that IRCC, that issued your approval for your study permit, that letter of introduction, and again, there's a link to a website there to again show you what this is, but that's the document that, as I've mentioned in other webinars, that will be turned into your study permit. So right now, you don't have your study permit, you just have a letter of introduction from IRCC. That is extremely important to present that at the border. That's what will turn into your study permit. So, oh yeah, so this letter has your permit reference number, which they use to issue your study permit. So very important. It's also very important to have the copy of the letter of acceptance from NBCC. So that, I think it's the 4-page
Yes.
letter of acceptance that we gave you from NBCC. It's very important to have that with you as well. Proof that you have enough money to support yourself during your stay. We're going to talk about funds, like money, in the next slide, so we'll skip that for right now. But again, essentially what you applied for your study permit, the proof that you demonstrated at that time, you should have the exact same proof with you. Okay, so that's why I said these are all the requirements that you needed to submit when you applied for your study permit. So make sure you have all of those. Letters of reference or any other documents that the visa office told you to bring. So that may be specific to your case. And either a valid ETA or a visitor visa. So again, we talked about this a little bit in the application process of applying for your study permit. So when you apply, and don't panic if you're like, what's an ETA, what's a TRV? Like if you were applying for your study permit, these two are also applied at the same time. Like it's you didn't have to fill out something separate. When you apply for your study permit, you're also applying for your TRV, your temporary resident visa, or your ETA. So your TRV is that sticker, that glossy sticker with the that goes inside your passport. So you'll need to show that, which is inside your passport, or the ETA. And so that's from countries that do not require a visitor visa, but it's an electronic travel authorization. And again, that that application was automatically submitted with your study permit. So you should have received notification like with your approval that also an ETA would be approved. So and sorry, so if there's the explanation, if you have a valid ETA, it will be linked to the passport you use to apply for your study permit. So just not to stress about the separate application. So and again, as I told you about the zipped case I had for my documents going to Japan, same to you. So keep all these documents safe, okay, and secure and dry. You may not be allowed into Canada if any of your documents are missing or if any of the information on your application or letters of reference is incorrect. So double check everything, make sure it all lines up. Again, as Hanny mentioned, especially if you weren't the one that put together your application, it's very important that you understand everything that's in there, okay? Because they will be asking you directly, what is this? So,
And another, like, I think important point that a lot of students need to understand, that the study permit will be issued you by border service officer. So the one you receive right now, it's basically allows you to come to Canada and get your study permit, but actual study permit you will only receive
at the border.
at the border, and
Yeah.
it will be issued by border service officer, and he just need to check if you meet all the requirements for study permit.
He or she. We have
Yes,
female border
they.
officers as
Yes,
well.
they
So
will.
so yes, the visitor visa you will get in advance, but the Henny's right. The study permit is issued there at the border. Okay. So I hope that this slide's very important, of course. And as I said, we're going to send this information to you in an email, this presentation. So all that's very important to go over, make sure you have. Now, on so continued information, here are a few other things that I just want to cover. So again, and Hanny brought this up when we were reviewing the presentation. Remember to know your NBCC program and the reason for why you're studying that. So if so, we have over 90 programs here at NBCC. I know that I'm still getting to know all of them. So again, if it was someone who was helping you apply for NBCC or for your application, um, and if you weren't the one who had the final say on your letter of explanation or your application for NBCC, make sure that, or you might have applied for more than one program at NBCC,
Yep.
and maybe you've even forgotten which one you actually got accepted to in the end, right? So make sure that you know your NBCC program and why you're studying, the reasons for your studying. If you are, if you think you're going to be nervous during this experience, again, you should be printing off your letter of explanation anyway. Just print off your whole application that you submitted to IRCC for your study permit. So have that with you, review that, remind yourself why you're studying, so that you can in person talk to the border agent about what what that reason is, so they know you're a true student coming to NBCC. Okay.
And
So
you
yep,
always can, sorry
it's
for
okay.
interrupting you. And you always can read the description of the program and the courses that
Yep,
included in this program on
exactly.
nbcc.ca. So if you applied and been accepted, just go in and see the information and courses. And yep,
It's a really good
just
point.
yep.
So, so now, and I'm going to ask Kenny's help with this one too, because uh, I think when I went to Japan, I only had about $1,000 with me, but
Okay.
Annie supposedly had a bit more. So one thing that's really important to note is that when you are coming into Canada, actually you will be given a landing card. I think now it's all electronic at a computer, but you must disclose if you are bringing in to Canada more than $10,000 Canadian. So whether that's cash, bankers' drafts or checks, travelers' checks or money orders, or securities that belong to you, so stocks, bonds, dependitures, or treasury bills. So again, this is from the website. So if you have that on you, then you must disclose that if it's more than $10,000. So Annie, did you want to add to that?
Well, the only thing I want to add, when you're gonna have this your landing declaration, just
Yes,
make
landing.
sure if you have more than 10,000
Mhm.
Canadian, just mark off that you have this money. I mean, there is nothing bad about this. As I told
Nope.
to border service immigration officer, he told me as soon as you include it in your declaration, you save. And the only reason why they want to know it, it's there's no any consequences for you. They just keep it for the statistics, how much money people
Yep.
bring cash into Canada. And
Right.
another point, like for let's say you have $9,500 US, and you may think, well, it's not 10,000, but if you
It is.
use
Yeah.
currency, it's more than 10,000. The same applies to euro and Great Britain pounds. So make
Yep.
sure that after just check the currency rate, and if it's more than 10,000, just include in your declaration, and the immigration officer might ask you to show the money, and that's it. There is nothing to worry about. Just if
No.
you have more than
No.
10,000, just include it in your
It's just
declaration.
very important to say that you have it. And of
Yep.
course, like studying, coming to study as a student, you're supposed to have $10,000 at your disposal anyway, so that could be with you. So it's not a surprise that any student would have this. So you just have to tell the border agent, or in your in your form and tell them if they when they ask. So
And for
yeah,
example, if you have 10,000 on your MasterCard, Visa, you don't have to, to show it to immigration officer. I mean, you don't have to mark off that you have more than 10,000. Everything that
credit,
on your credit, it's
right?
fine.
Yeah. So okay, so children under 18. So I know that I've received a lot of questions about kids coming with you. So as we did, I know that this came up in our frequently asked questions sessions a couple times about um, applying for study permits for your children. And again, the answer of whether or not to apply in advance or not for a study permit for your dependent children is actually some websites say yes, you must, some saying you don't need to. But what was clear, no matter the situation, if you've applied in advance or not for a study permit for your children, is that you must have valid identification with them. So to prove that this is your child or your children, because that's something that's again very serious, to ensure that uh, that there is no human or child trafficking going on. So the identification that you have with your children is very important. It's also important that you have, they also might ask for school records or immunization records. So if you click on, I don't want to go into too many details because we do have a lot more to cover and our time is passing, but click on this link when we send it to you for the requirements for minor children, and that will give you the full details of what's expected for bringing children. Okay. So, and then the last one on here is just the so we know that uh, I brought it up last week, and I unfortunately may have confused some people. I'm sorry about that. That about the work permit for your co-op or work internship as part of your NBCC program. So this is separate from the 20 hours a week that you can work as a student and full time in the breaks. So if you are any international student in Canada is allowed to work 20 hours a week as when a full-time student or full-time in the breaks. But if you have a work internship or co-op or on-the-job training, whatever it is called, you do need to have a separate work permit for that. And as we know, most of NBCC's programs do require that. So in your acceptance letter, there was a box that said yes. Work is I think it was section 24 in the information page that says yes, work is a component for this program. And so many students simply receive their separate work permit because that's included. But we've heard from the feedback from students has been that they've not always issued a separate work permit for that. And so last week, as I mentioned during the webinar, and as you would have seen in the email, I included a separate PDF, a letter explaining that most of our programs do require a work component, so you do require a separate work permit. So some students may have received that notification already, or some you can talk to the border agent, so the border officer, that this is also part of your program. So now you have that additional letter of explanation from NBCC, and as I said, check your email from last week. I sent it last Friday to show the border agent, because when they issue your study permit, they will also at the same time issue a separate work permit for that job, that work experience. Does that make
Yep.
sense? Haney, anything to add?
Yeah, just want to sum up, if you don't need the additional work permit if you're going to work 20 hours
No.
per week and during the scheduled breaks, but for your co-op and practicum after
Yes.
graduation, you would need this, and Claire sent the letter of explanation, so you can
Yeah.
provide this letter explanation and
And
to immigration officer and say, I need a separate work permit because I'm going to have practicum at the end of my study, and yeah, they will
exactly.
issue this.
And luckily it is, as you've just said, it's at the end of your study. Like I think almost all of NBCC's programs, the work
Yep.
practicum is in the final semester, in the final month or
Yes.
two. So the other thing I want to mention now is that if the border agent, if you forget to bring this up, because that's totally understandable, or if they forget to give it to you or don't give it to you for whatever reason, it's not the end of the world. Because as soon as you arrive in Canada, and so let's say you arrive in Moncton, and you're like, oh, I'm finally here, but oh, you're looking through your documents and they didn't issue a separate work permit. That's okay because you'll be here, in enough time that and I'll be giving presentations in ITLC and in September that asks everyone to check whether or not they have this separate work permit. If the border agent didn't give you a separate work permit, you can apply in September, and that's lots of enough time to get it for April or May. So even if you don't get it at the border, that's okay. So I don't want to stress you out too much about this point because there's still time to get it. Okay. So we're gonna move on because I know that we're already
Yep.
5 minutes over what we thought we might be. But this is the final reminders that I want to say about at the border. Um, as yeah, Hanny and I both know from living in other countries, and I've traveled to a lot of countries as Hanny has as well. No matter your nationality, no matter the country you're traveling to, like crossing any border can be stressful, right? Because they're, as I said, they're very, serious, sometimes intimidating positions, like the officer or agent. Um, and yeah, so it can be stressful because because as I say next, like even Canada, it's a very friendly and welcoming country, but we do take immigration like very seriously. So we hope you do too. So um, I don't say this to stress you out. I just want you to be prepared for that because I mean, I think maybe your impression of Canada, Hanny and I like here smiling, and we are very welcoming. We're friendly. We want you to come. We're so excited for you to come. But this, as I said, this 5, 10 minute, 20 minutes of your life, whatever, is pretty serious. So we want you to be prepared with your documents, the information that you need to know. We want you to breathe, and everything should be fine. So
Yep.
yeah.
Just
So
small,
okay.
small add to this. I mean, guys, you have all the reason to come to Canada. There is
Yeah.
no need to panic. You have your letter of acceptance. You get your study permit. So there is nothing. You don't do anything wrong. You just need to be prepared and provide
Yeah.
the information up front. And other than that, everything should be fine. We don't have any issue with the students who come to study to Canada. So you come here based on letter of acceptance, based on your study permit approval, so everything should be fine. And yeah, just provide all the information. And remember, immigration officers and border service officers there, it's their job to protect us as well. Just make sure that they check everyone who enters the Canada. So just part of their duties, I guess.
Yep.
So protect us as
Yep.
well.
Exactly. So oh yeah, and again, so remember that you are agreeing to meet the conditions of an international student in Canada. So again, I just need to, as the immigration advisor, I need to say this up front, and as I've told NBCC students here as well, like while I am here to help in worst case scenarios and to help guide you, ultimately each student is responsible for meeting the conditions of an international student, and so do read those conditions of the study permit, and what can happen if you don't meet them, because again that's serious. um, and finally, so when you do receive permission to enter, the officer will stamp your passport and let you know how long you can stay in Canada. Usually, this will match the length of your study permit. Ask questions if you're unsure about anything. If there are no problems, the officer will then issue your study permit, let you enter Canada. Woohoo! So you should check your study permit to make sure your personal information is correct. So make sure your spelling of your name on the study permit is the exact same as your passport. that's for, and like your birth date, like it's it's much easier to check that and change that at the border than it is when you arrive in New Brunswick. So do check that to make sure the information's correct and to know when it expires, because this is also something that is the responsibility of every student. Uh, that the expiry dates, that's up to you to know when your documents expire, because this this piece of paper is the reason that you're able to be in Canada, and so you need to know when that expires, because at the end of that time, you either need to apply for your extension of your study permit, change your status to visitor or temporary worker, or leave Canada by the expiry date. That is ultimately your responsibility. So, and then finally, the resource on everything I've talked about these past 3 slides, except for that little part about staying calm, be patient, be polite, everything else, that can be found on the IRCC website, which again, we're going to provide to you in an email. So, and I just wanted to again show you another photo. So once you get past that, you did it. So welcome to Canada. So the last slide here, we're going to, Henny, I'll let you quickly go over that and then we'll jump to questions. Yeah.
Yep. Transportation from Canada. Sorry, transportation from airport. There's a few options available. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in details during our housing webinar next week. There is a transportation available, and we will have our staff at airport who will provide you advices and explain you how to get to the place of your destination. It will be available for our students. Accommodation. Our staff at airport will also provide you some of the advices how to find and book accommodation, but we're going to talk about this a little bit more in details during our next webinar. Social insurance number, that number you would need in order to work in Canada. You can get it whether at airport, like International Airport of Toronto, if you have enough time between your flights. For example, if you fly into Moncton and you landed in Toronto and your next flight in 5 hours, you can get it at airport. If you don't have enough time, it's fine. You can get it at New Brunswick at Canada Service, and this number is you would need if you're planning to work in Canada. Explore your new community. It's there is a multicultural centers. Just visit one of the multicultural associations and find out about the community and opportunities for newcomers, and just try to to get into Canadian lifestyle. Maybe try to volunteer and get this experience, so you will feel yourself, so you're gonna feel more comfortable in new country. By try to make friends, basically just try to make friends and meet new people every day. And yep.
Well, that's yeah. By that, I actually meant just like explore, just wander around your new neighborhood, go to the local supermarket so that you start to get familiar with like, the new types of food and just your surrounding areas of where, like, take for example here in Moncton, maybe like try taking the bus to NBCC to see how long that takes. Like just start to explore and settle in. Yeah. And then the last point,
Yep.
Henny, like I just want to jump in here because so last week we had someone ask if we have a step-by-step guide, right? Remember we had
Yes.
that question?
Yes.
So I totally forgot that yes, there is actually one of our student success coordinators is working on a guide right now. It was prepared by international students from this year,
Yep.
and so a guidebook, a handbook, and is coming. It may not be ready until ITLC, but it will be. It's coming. So that's exciting. That is that step by
Yep.
step guide that was requested. That's coming. So yeah, is that it? We're good.
Yep.
So oh, and I did want to
All.
mention, you were saying that we will have representatives at the airport to explain transportation and accommodation, but
Yes.
that will only be the close to orientation. So,
Yep.
for example, if you arrive in July or if you arrive in early August, we won't be able to help you at that time we won't have representatives at the airport all summer. So that's why next week when we talk about accommodation, we'll talk a bit about taxis and such, right?
Yep. We're
Okay.
going to talk about transportation, accommodation, and the way it works.
Yeah.
Questions?
So yes. So sorry, we did go a little bit longer, which is not too surprising for us. We like to talk. So we'll see how many questions we can get to in 15 minutes. Okay. So, Henny, where do you want to start?
So it says, yes, hello, Claire. It seems like students can hear us, which is great. We don't talk to
Great.
ourselves. And
Okay.
first question for Claire.
Okay.
And my Canadian host tells me there is no immigration clearance in Moncton Airport. Is it true? Does that mean my study permit is issued by CBSA officer at Montreal Airport?
Yeah,
My
very
transit
good
staff.
question. And that's I think probably a lot of people have that. Either you will be transferring through Montreal or Toronto or Vancouver or even Calgary, I don't know. So if you are flying through one of the major stops, the first the first Canadian border, it's called a port of entry. So the first
Yep.
port of entry that you hit in Canada, so if that's Montreal, that's where they will issue your study permit. So that's kind of nice because you can relax a bit. Like, so once you hit that first, and then you're in Canada. You don't need to
Yep.
stress about it on your final destination.
Just
You can
don't
get through
miss your
that.
flight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Get that through that in Montreal. Um, and hopefully, because it's an international flight, they will put a few hours before your next flight. But yes,
Mm.
you'll be doing that in Montreal, Alan. Yeah, good
And
question.
I just want to add to this because there is a direct flight, for example, from Mexico and other countries. So there is Moncton, there is immigration clearance in Moncton and
Right.
Fredericton and St. John campus. So if you travel directly to Moncton, Fredericton, you will going to
That's
meet immigration officer
Yes,
at
sorry.
local
That is a
airport.
very good point. So,
Yeah,
but it's just because that transfer said Montreal, so you would do it in Montreal. But you're right.
yeah.
If you're coming directly from, do you say Mexico? Mexico to Moncton? Is
Yeah,
that a direct
there
flight?
is like Dominican Republic. There is a
Yeah.
few countries that they have direct flight to
Yes.
Fredericton, Moncton,
Then
St.
you
John.
will be doing it at Moncton or Fredericton. Like those are international airports, so they still have Canadian Border Service agents. So
Yep, for international flights. Yes.
that's right. So, okay, hi. Maybe this is I'll put this question back to you, Henny. So, I will join NBCC St. Andrews and will arrive to Fredericton Airport. Is there any public transportation between Fredericton and St. Andrews?
Unfortunately, there is no public transportation at this point. We are working on a guide, and we are going to talk a little about the options in next webinar. So please stay tuned for our housing webinar, and we're going to cover transportation, how to get from place to place.
Yeah. Okay, so stay tuned. So, our
Yep.
St. Andrews campus is working on that.
Yes.
So, next question also. So, when will the university homestays information release? So,
So yes, I think I can cover it. So
sure.
homestay is available for students under 19 years until 19 years old who I need to custodian, and everyone who is need, I believe the information has been sent. If you are older than 19 years old and you don't need custodian, I'm not sure if homestay is available option for you, but
Okay.
it's released to all the students who need a custodian so they can stay with homestay and homestay because just give you a little bit of background, everyone who comes to study in New Brunswick under 19 years old, they would need to provide custodianship letter, and that's why homestay is there for, and the homestay provide this letter of custodianship to the students who come to Canada, and some of
Yeah.
you who is under 19, they would need to provide this letter to immigration officer as well.
So the priority is going to under 19.
Yes.
They are
Yeah.
definitely, or they are matched with
Yes.
homestays. And
There
then
is.
if
Yeah.
you're older, then
you
It's
would need to look something separate, and we're going to talk. I'm going to talk because there is like
yeah,
more
housing.
housing question.
Housing
We're
is
going
next
to,
week, so we'll cover that more next week.
yeah, and I will take all the questions down that you have, and I will cover them during the housing webinar.
Okay. So next question, I guess for me. So will I get into trouble with CBSA if I bring more funds into Canada than originally stated in my RCC application? Will a bank draft suffice to prove ability to support myself in Canada, as I don't feel safe carrying $20,000 cash in person over a long flight journey? Very, very fair. So no, you won't. You will not get in trouble if you have more money than you stated to IRCC. No, that's a good thing. I think we want the Canadian government will be happy to see that you have more funds to access to help you during your time here in Canada. In terms of the bank draft, yeah, the bank draft should be suffice because you that's definitely safer than carrying $20,000 cash.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're a-okay, Alan. Okay. Annie, I'm going to toss this back to you. So my
Okay.
prospective landlord wants me to transfer money payment as a reservation deposit. Um, should should we talk about this next week?
Well, yes, we
Or
can, but there
okay.
is it's a good thing not to. I mean, it depends on the landlord, but we can talk a little bit more in details for our next webinar, because there is few renting company who like Kilam and other company who are well established. I would not, worry about the deposit if you put deposit to this kind of company. But if you don't know the person and he or she requires you to pay deposit, I would be very careful with this. But we can discuss this a little bit more in our next webinar.
Yeah,
It depends who is asking, because from my own experience, there is a few companies, like big companies, they have multiple of properties. They would ask you to put deposit, and I would say safe. But if you don't know the person, and he would or she would request you to put the deposit, you would need to check carefully.
So Alan and Benedicto, so both of your questions are about renting and landlords. So I think we're gonna take note of those questions,
Yes.
and um, so I'll take note, and we're gonna talk about it next week because
Yes, and
I
the
want to
question
be
that
able to
you
help.
have. Yep, go ahead, Helen.
I'm kind of wanting to help anyone who has questions about the border, just because that's this week's topic.
Yep.
Um, Most importantly, um, so the next one, from September, insurance will be under NBCC. Yes, that's a
Yes,
quick
September
answer.
1st is the date when you will be covered under GARDM insurance for NBCC students.
So here's the next question that is relevant to this session. So can I purchase a prepaid SIM card at the airport? If I buy one in the Montreal airport, can it be used in New Brunswick? Will I get cellular coverage throughout NB? So Henny, do you
Yep.
know, so I haven't had experience buying a SIM card here. So do you have any insight on that?
So yes, I do. The best way to buy SIM, because there is a lot of promotion, especially for students who is not familiar with Canadian financial system. There is a lot of promotion that in many places they will offer you the free phone, but you would need to sign up for a plan for 24 months, and it could be like $200 per month. So my best advice for you, just buy a prepaid card. You can buy it uh, at any local supermarket like Walmart. It's not local supermarket, but let's say in Walmart they sell prepaid card. And for international students, I would suggest to buy just prepaid card, prepaid SIM. So you would spend around, I would say, there is different plans from 15 to 25 and more dollars per month. Then just, there is a lot of marketing tricks, and they give you like free phone, and you would need to pay $240 per month. So just make sure you did your research. The best thing to do, just come and buy paid SIM card, and you will know how much you would pay during the every month. And if you feel like you want to go and buy iPhone or like expensive phone with a plan, just make sure you read all the condition and you understand how much would you pay for the course of 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, because the next point, Canadian cell phone plans are the world's most expensive. Yes,
Yep.
unfortunately, sadly, very true.
I
Uh,
give you example like I purchased my prepaid SIM and I paid $20 per month. And my friend who came here, he got a free iPhone, but he pays around 250 per month.
oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, but it's called free, but you sign up the contract. I mean, when you pay 250, there is a lot of like date and minutes included in your plan, but you might not need to use as much as you've been offered. So please read the
So,
conditions and compare what you want to
and
do.
and just Alan, your question, what is your opinion of the cheaper carriers? So, Public Mobile, Freedom, Kudo, Chatter. I can personally say I'm on Kudo. I've liked my experience with Kudo for the most part. Henny, what are you on?
The public.
Do you feel comfortable to disclose?
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable. I'm not like, advise you to purchase
No, no, no,
one
no,
of
no.
others, but from my experience, Public Mobile was providing a good plans. It was, as far as I remember, when I purchased, it was like $25, and you would have like 1 gigabyte of internet included and free talks, free phone calls, Canada wide. So yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to your first question with the SIM card. Does it work in Montreal and New Brunswick? Most of luckily most of our plans now, like any of the mobile companies, like Canada-wide texting and calling is now included. Like I think with most plans, so that's good. Like any cell phone that you have, I think you can call and receive
Yeah.
from any area code. So there's
Some of them might not include Canada wide calls because I personally encounter some of the plans that they allow you to just make a free calls within your province, like New
okay.
Brunswick, Montreal, or Quebec. But yeah, it just depends what you need. If you're planning to call Canada-wide, you might need this plan. If you just going to call within New Brunswick and make maybe a few calls out of province, yeah, just see what you really need and yep, choose
Okay.
carefully.
And Henny and I were just texting back and forth. I know, magic, right? You can't even see, but we are going to extend this presentation for 15 extra minutes because we were
Yep,
15 minutes behind. So we're going to go to 11:15. Okay, so we've got an
yep.
extra 18 minutes right now. Okay, so we're going to keep answering questions as quickly as possible. So, hi, my name is Akash. I've my study permit for fall 2018 intake for Ontario province, but unfortunately, some medical reason, I came to India. Sorry to hear about that, Akash. Now I'm coming for NBCC college for fall 2019 intake. Now the question is, how do I change my DLI number in the study permit and when I have to change it? Before coming to Canada or after landing in Canada? Please guide me. That's a really good question. I know for students in Canada, if that's the case, and I think it would be the same case for you because you don't need to apply for a new study permit, as
Yep.
you know, but you need to go online to my CIC account. So if you applied for your study permit through an online process, you should already have my CIC account, or sorry, my GC key or a sign-in partner. If you don't, you can create a GC key and it will connect to your account. In there, you can change your DLI, and I'd say it's very important that you make that switch before you leave India and come to Canada. So so change it on your account so that when you come to the border, you it's already been changed in the system, and you could show them all of your documents of, and in your case, I would like show your original study permit, show your medical documentation, show your NBCC acceptance letter. Like you will need to have a few more documents than the average student.
Yep.
But just show that, and of course the explanation letter. So make sure you have that all documented. But yes, change it on my CIC account, and do it before you leave home.
Yep.
That's my opinion.
Yeah,
So
it just it's allowed to change your college or university. Just let the government know that you change
yep,
it, and it
the
should be in
DLI. Yeah.
DLI. Yep.
So how much money required for initial period, Henny? I'm gonna ask that to you because it's not immigration. So
So we would recommend to book around 1,000 Canadian per month, which
right.
will
Yeah.
include your living expenses and rent. Of course, it depends because we have different preferences for housing, food, and transportation, but that's what we require you at least to have 1,000 Canadian per month.
But that's in addition, like, to your tuition. So,
Yes.
and I would actually add to that though, for the
Yep.
first month, a lot of apartments do require a damage deposit. So again, we're going to talk about this next week, so we'll
Yep.
go into more detail. But so that could be, the damage deposit is usually the equivalent of 1 month's rent. So if your rent, is $700, the damage deposit will also be $700. So you'll need $1,400 just for that first month, to for rent. So yes, maybe you can survive on $1,000 a month. Um, that is scrimping by. We're going to talk about budgeting in another webinar, but um, for that first month, I would say at least $2,000. Let's say.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents
Yeah.
on that. Okay.
I think it's very useful information because yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with renting in Claire.
Right. Yeah.
So
We'll come to accommodation,
yeah,
renting, and that next week. But what's the date of orientation? ITLC, Annie?
August 29, as far as I
August
remember.
29th. So it's another Thursday, so we'll just replace our webinars. You'll see us in real life. Okay. So, by the way, I'm having an issue with my student account. My password is incorrect. I also have tried the feature called reset password, but nothing's happening. I'm I'm coming to Montreal, so my immigration will take place out there at okay. So student account, Dhruv Mehta. I don't know if this is NBCC or IRCC. Um,
I believe it's NBCC. I will. So everyone who has a problem with account, you should just let me check the right email for you. Um,
so Henny's writing the
yeah, I
email.
will. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just going to
Henny's.
provide you an email where you can send the request if you have issues with your account, and one of our staff will get back to you and help.
Okay, so as you're typing, I'll answer a few more questions. So again, if you're coming into Montreal, will your immigration happen in Montreal or Moncton? It would be Montreal. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going in July 29th, so that's great. With your
Yeah.
spouse.
So
She does.
just to everyone know, it's sorry, Claire, I just got the email. So
Yep.
it's self-support at nbcc.ca. I
Okay.
put it there for everyone. So if you have any questions and you have technical issues, just send the email to self-support at nbcc, and one of our staff will get back to you if you have any problem with signing in your account. Sorry,
Okay.
Claire, for interrupting you again.
No, no, that's okay. So self-service support. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Um, okay, so that was for Dhruv Mehta and anyone else who's having issues. Um, and Pedro, I'm arriving July 29th with your spouse. She doesn't speak very well English. We will be interviewed together, or she'll be interviewed separate from me. So, Henny, you arrived with a spouse, correct?
Yes, I did.
Were you interviewed together or separately?
We've been asked questions together, but so we went to the interview like together, but the officer asked us separate questions. But I can hear the questions that officer asking my wife and vice versa.
Oh, okay, you
But
were there
yeah,
together.
it's not something that intimidating. They just ask you to provide the address where you're gonna stay and what you're gonna do. So, and I believe in many international airports they do have people who speaks multiple languages.
Hmm.
So if your wife spouse does not speak language, there is a high probability they would have someone who speaks one of the language. They have translator services. So yep,
Yes.
shouldn't be a
So
problem. Yeah.
so that's a very, very good point. Like again, your spouse, Pedro, you were expected to have a certain level of English language, right, to come to NBCC. So that's
Yes.
very important. But your spouse is not required. That those
Yeah.
same requirements don't apply to your spouse. So she, as Henny said, like maybe that will be the direct CBSA officer who will who will speak your language, or maybe they will let you interpret for her, or maybe they'll bring a translator
Yes.
because it's the airport, so obviously they have every language on hand.
Yep.
Um, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But Henny just brought up a very, very important point, which I didn't include on this PowerPoint, but now I'm going to add, which is asking for your accommodation. That's something that isn't on the IRCC website, but we both know from having traveled everywhere, an address of where you are going to stay is very, very important. I think an address and a phone number is very important
Contact
for,
information. So they
yeah,
basically going to ask you the address where you're going to stay and the contact.
yeah.
Where are you going? Where are you going to stay? Yeah.
So of course we're going to mention this again next week because that's why it's important that you have an accommodation, either your rental apartment or at least a hotel or Airbnb when you arrive. But I'm going to add that to the presentation right now before I send it out to
Yeah,
everyone
it's one
because
of the
having an
mandatory options, by the way. Yes, they're going to ask you the where you're going to stay.
Yep. Okay, so next question, what do we have?
Yeah. About the money at the port of entry. What if a person has previous transfer over 10,000 Canadian, but at the money at the airport, the person has less than that. How should how should that be handled? I have already opened a bank account in Canada. So if I understand correctly your question, if you already transferred your uh,
Money.
uh, 10,000 Canadian to Canadian bank, all you need to have is just your bank statement from
Yeah,
Canadian bank that show
exactly.
the availability of money, and that's it. And
That's right.
if you don't have, and you don't need to mark off that you have 10,000 in cash. So immigration officer will ask you if you have money and you show the bank statements, but you don't need to prove that you have more than 10,000 when if it's in your bank account. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So
Yeah.
you just again, like, this kind of comes back to the same theme with almost every question that we're answering. It's like documentation, right? You just need to be able to prove that you have all of this. So
Yeah, and another question comes. I have already opened a bank account in
oops.
Canada and transfer money more than 10,000. Do I have to declare it at the border, or because I plan to only bring 10,000 in cash though? No, you don't have to. You don't have to declare because it's the 10,000 we're talking about. It's only in
is
cash.
is like
Yeah,
on you,
and
like,
yeah,
yeah. So
and
if
just
it's
if
already in, yeah, sorry, go for it.
yeah, but just make sure, I mean, 3,000 even in Great Britain pounds, just make sure that you do like currency exchange, because there is some currency that, I mean, 3,000 you should be fine by any currency, but just make sure you check the currency rate so you
Yeah.
don't exceed this
So
amount.
both Benedicto and Yulisa, I think that the yeah, having it in a bank account in Canada is not the same as like having it with you. So
And cash, yeah.
like you'll need to show that you have the bank account set up, or sorry, you have $10,000 in Canada. That will help show that you can pay for your stay as a student in Canada. But when it comes to disclosing funds, if you only have $3,000 on you, then you're okay. Does that
Yep.
make sense? So, and again, yeah. Did you have something to add?
No, I think
Yeah,
I mean, makes sense to me. And another
yeah,
question is the same. If I transfer the money, but at the airport I have less than that, all you need. to show where you transfer the money, where the and just show the bank statement from Canadian bank.
Okay.
Yep. You just
So,
need to
okay. Yep.
prove that you already have this money and it's accessible on your bank account, whether it's in Canada or other country.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so both Pedro and Manuel are saying that you haven't received a letter of explanation. I think you mean about the work permit and like the documents. So this is a little strange to me because if you received the invitation for these webinars, you should also be receiving the email that I sent last week because it's the same system that we use. So both Pedro and Manuel, again, check back at the email I sent was last Friday afternoon. So look in your personal or your spam email folders to see if you got that. But again, maybe today, maybe I included too many documents in that last one. Maybe I had too many PDFs. I don't know. How about today? I'm going to send this presentation, but I will also include the letter of explanation for the separate work permit.
Sorry for interrupting you, but I see another message
Really?
from Manuel, and he said, "Please ignore. I found the letter of
Ah,
explanation from Paul."
yay. Okay, thank you for searching, Henny, and thank you, Manuel, for okay, so it went out. That's good. So
Yep.
in that email, there were documents about the letter of explanation, the visa refusal reasons, and again, applying for your study permit. So like there were 4 PDFs I included in the email last week. So today we will submit this presentation. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. So we've got all those. A couple more questions. Yeah, that we have time for.
Yes,
Um,
I guess so.
okay. Last time, oh, Akash, I think this was this. So I got S1 study category visa, so I got only study permit. But this time in NBCC, my program's co-op. So what do I do if I forgot work permit for co-op? So it's very related. So use that letter, and I'm going to attach it again in today's follow-up email anyway. Um, when you're at the border this time, Akash and everyone out there, again, show them when they're giving you the study permit, they can also issue you a separate co-op work permit. And you can show them the letter I provide. So I'll attach that in the PDF today. Okay. And again, Manuel, thank you for correcting me. So the next question, I would like to inform you that I got admission in administrative professionals course for September intake. However, my student visa got refusal on ground of language ability. I gave my exam, but results is pending. If I could not get a good score, then may I change my intake from September to January? Or if yes, then what is the procedure? So, Henny, do you want
Yep.
to? Okay.
Yes, we can defer your program in case you provide your study permit refusal and refusal letter. All you need to do is just send the inquiry to international@nbcc. I'm going to type the email here. So just provide your study permit refusal letter and ask to defer to transfer your application for the next available intake. And uh, 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 by transferring application, it does not mean that you're going to be accepted, because our admission team would need still check the seats availability, or as you may know that some of the program is not available for January or spring intake. So yes, you have option to transfer your application with proof of study permit refusal letter, but our admission team will need to review and see if there are seats available. I will send you the
Okay.
email. It's international at NBCC. Just send your request to international NBCC and ask to transfer your application and attach your study permit.
Yep. Okay, so thank you for answering that.
Yep.
And Felipe, I'm glad you can hear us now. If not, though, for anyone who couldn't hear us or who missed any part of this presentation, today in the follow-up email, along with this presentation, we'll also be sending the webinar recording. So Gladys, I think we answered your question about meeting the border agent in Toronto or Montreal versus Moncton. If Toronto, Montreal is first, then you do it there. And Pedro, we answered your question. Um, and the last question, I guess, we're going to take for how much time does it take at the airport to get a social insurance number? Is it
From my
this
experience, it took me around 35 minutes.
35 minutes?
It's from my
And is it
experience,
the,
but I came around 11 p.m.
okay.
So it could be different because there might be another people in line. So that's how long it took. Yeah.
And is it the same office border who gives it? No, it's not the CBSA officer. It's not the border agent. It would be somewhere in the airport, correct?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not far actually. It's a border officer who advised me to get the SIN number. He said that the border officer, they're very friendly and helpful as soon as you done your clearance, and he suggested me to get my SIN number if I have enough time, and it was just right next to border office. So yep, that. But it's I'm talking about my subjective experience at the
Yeah.
international airport of Toronto a few years ago. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's all the time we have for now. Um, sorry if we didn't get to your question, but I hope those were a lot of good questions that were asked. And we will be coming back to you again live next Thursday
Yep.
for a housing webinar.
Yeah, and next Thursday going to be a webinar in regards to housing and transportation, accommodation, all that important things that we hear every day. And if you have questions, you can message us at our Facebook page. It calls NBCC International. I will provide the link right now for you guys, so you can sign up for our page. And yeah, so
Yeah.
it's Facebook NBCC International. So if you have any more questions, please send your question there, and we will get back to you.
Okay.
There it
But
is.
for now, I
Yes.
think we're gonna sign off our webinar and yeah, look for the follow-up email
Yep.
and with this presentation and recording. All right.
Thank you
Thanks
guys for
for
watching, and see
joining.
you in Canada soon. Bye bye.
Yeah, okay. Bye.